All right, I think we're live. Welcome again to a live broadcast here on the Samba Journeys platform. So glad that you guys are here. Today is June the 26th, 2026. 26. Lottery. I'm just playing. But anyway, I hope you guys are having had a wonderful week. I know it's for some of you, for some of us, it was a long week, but we made it. This week actually didn't seem it just seemed like it went fast. And you know that we're going to be in July next week. Man, this thing is moving. Anyway, so today we're going to do a follow-up on a story that we did a while ago. And that was this whole Uncle Nearest situation. The woman who's the CEO, Fawn Weaver, and we got some updates for you. And it's not looking good. And so we're going to talk about that, and we might mention talk about some other things, but that's really the focus of this video here. And I actually did a song. I put together a song. I really didn't write this one. I just told ChatGPT or whatever, here's some things I'm just going to throw at you. I don't have a whole lot of time. Just make a song for me or whatever. So that's about it. So anyway, we're going to play this song for you just as a warm up. I don't think I'm going to play the whole song because it's pretty long. But this is just a warm up to, unfortunately, what we're dealing with here with this particular story here. Okay, we're giving people time to get on in the meantime. So let me go ahead and put this on here, and oh boy, here we go, y'all.
Some folks don't let a dead man sleep. This here's a song from the other side of the dirt. And I got one question. Why, Fawn, why? Why you had to do me so low? Why, Fawn, why? Wouldn't let my old bones grow. It was bad enough they hit my name, get my magic out the sky. Then you came along with a shovel and a smile. Tell me why, Fawn, why? I made that fire water sing, put thunder in the barrel and smoke in the glass. Had them white folks whispering low while my name got buried in the past. I was already down in history's hole where the truth don't get no light. Then I heard somebody digging around my grave in the middle of the night. Why, Fawn, why? Why you had to do me so low? Why, Fawn, why? Wouldn't let my old bones go. It was bad enough they hit my name, kept my magic out the sky. Then you came along with a shovel and a smile. Tell me why, Fawn, why?
Another 30 seconds. This broadcast has been brought to you by Samba Journeys. Oh, Samba Tree. SambaTree.com. Make sure you check us out.
Pockets got heavy first. Put my face
For all your health and wellness needs from a natural perspective, make sure you check us out. SambaTree.com.
Heard them fancy people cheer, but down where the dead men listen, something didn't sound sincere. Down dirty, Lord, that's a cold way to climb. You used my name for the doorway, then left my house behind. Why, Fawn,
Why? Come on now.
Why you had to do me so low?
Why, Fawn? Why?
Fawn, why wouldn't let my old bones grow? It was bad enough they hit my name, kept my magic out the sky. Then you came along with a shovel and a smile. Tell me why, Fawn, why?
All right. Maybe we'll play the rest of that later on. Oh, my goodness. This right here. This story right here. Oh, my goodness. Really, really sad story. Unfortunate story. And I ain't talking about for Miss Fawn Weaver. I'm talking for the man behind the legacy. We're going to talk about that and what she has done to that man's legacy, who's no longer with us. And that was Mr. Nathan Green. He is considered the founder. He is the actually he was the head distiller for whiskey distiller for Jack Daniels. And they said he is the first Black American master distiller on record in the United States. So when it came to what Mr. Nathan Green was able to bring to the table, I mean, he literally really helped launch an entire industry here in the United States. And I'm going to bring his picture up here on the screen here in a moment here. Let me see if I can bring it up. Give me a moment here. Here you go. Uh-oh. Right here. That's it. There you go. There you go. That's him right there. And that's Jack Daniels to his left. Or I'll just circle it. I think that's Jack Daniels right there. Everybody's heard of Jack Daniels. Well, there go that hand sign again. I'll tell you, no matter where you go, they always flashing that hand sign. I just caught that. Anyway, but yeah, this is Nathan Green, Nearest Green here. And yeah, we're going to talk about him in a moment. But first, let me get this off here. My sister, Mauricia, and I'm gonna get your name. I hope I got your name right. I really do. But I want you to, if you could reach out to me, because I want to have you on. I want to have you on, you know, with your background. And I want us to have a discussion, a live discussion on this whole nonsense that keeps coming up in my face. I'm hearing so many people talking about how, you know, there was another story that came out this week of yet unfortunately another young Black person who they found hanging in the woods somewhere. I saw part of the story, and I keep hearing people saying over and over again that Black people do not hang themselves. And people keep saying this over and over again. They said, no, this one thing Black people will not do. We will not go into the woods and we will not hang ourselves. And, you know, I have tried to really go through this slowly for people, you know, to really get people to understand, you know, just to get an idea of depression. And just depression is a very, very, it can be, it's various degrees of depression, right? There's various degrees of it. And some people, you know, can really go into a very deep, deep, dark place. And it's and people don't realize that. And one of the things I kept telling people over and over again is this. I said, there isn't any mechanism within Black people who are dealing with depression where they said, you know what, let's see, I'm okay with using a gun, I'm okay with jumping off a bridge, I'm okay with running into traffic, I'm okay with doing this, that, or whatever, but I'm not going to hang myself because of historical precedents. I'll never do that. If you're dealing with depression, you don't know what you're going to do. I mean, certain levels of it, you know what I mean? When you start getting into that dark space, people don't realize that. And one of the things that I floated when I did talk about this, because what I did was I actually took people through all of these different hangings that have taken place, up until recently, not this one, of course, that just came up this week. But I took people and I showed them, okay, this was the investigation. There was a local investigation. There was a state level investigation. There was a federal investigation. Here are all the facts that they have. In some cases, they even had video of leading up to it and all of that. And no matter what you show people, it's like they still don't want to believe that. And, instead they just want to believe that some mysterious ghost or someone is going around and snatching Black folks up and hanging them off of trees. Now, again, did that happen in the past? Of course it did. That's very true. Is that happening now? In the overwhelming majority of these cases, no, it's not. The only one I can think of is James Byrd that took place in Texas, but he wasn't hung from a tree. It was from the back of a car. White people did that, right? But other than that, all of these have come out to where, yes, these were suicides. And, it's very unfortunate. But what's even more unfortunate is the amount of people who want to just automatically categorize it as, no, we don't do that kind of stuff, as if, Black folks have this certain type of way of offing themselves that they avoid. And that's not true at all. And what it does, it dampers a very serious discussion that needs to be had when it comes to depression and the different faces of it. You know what I mean? And so anyway, I would like to have you on. Just if you could reach out to me, email, whatever, and then we can, figure out a day that we can actually do something live. If you would like, I would love to have you on. It'll give you an opportunity to talk about what you do, your channel and all that kind of stuff. But if you would like, I would love to have you on and we can hear from you, and you could talk about it and we can address that and maybe some other issues too. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure I got that out there. The other thing, and then we're going to get into our main story, is I told you what I do when I have the opportunity is I just document stuff. That's all I do. I see things, I document it, and then I just pull from it as needed or whatever. But one of the things, if you've been following this platform, you know that since the days of COVID, we have not stopped talking about COVID, unlike many other people who have just casually just moved on like it was nothing. All these people who mysteriously died, suddenly and all of that. And, people just kind of like, oh, that was just a blip in history and, oh, that's it. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I'm not crazy. And and I don't have amnesia. I'm going to remember that because I know all what we see, and it's still coming out, all the stuff that's coming out right now, even with Dr. Fauci, there are things that we haven't even talked about that are just coming out now about Dr. Fauci and a lot of the crazy stuff that he was doing under the table to get this vaccine out. And we'll talk about that. We'll get into that soon. But there's still a lot of avalanche of information that's still coming out about this. And the thing that's really saddens me about this is that, you know, us as black folks, we have a history when it comes to the medical industry in this country and how they have always used us for experimentation and all of that. And this should have been something that should have caused us to not only have great pause, but really to fight against it and to demand accountability. And for the most part, you did have quite a few black folks who said, no, I'm not taking it, I'm not touching it, so forth and so on, or whatever. But unfortunately, there were a lot who did take it, particularly a lot of our elders. They took it. And I've talked about this, and we've talked about this before on this platform. You know, no matter where I go, you know, if I see, and there's a high chance, if I see older black folks, many cases, they are still double masked, single mask, double mask. And I'm talking here in Arizona where, you know, today it was like over 110 degrees and they're still wearing their mask. And I'm like, because of that fear of what was put into them. Did people get sick and all of that stuff? And we've talked through that stuff and what was going on and how the CDC just automatically attenuated or faded out and said, you know what? We're not going to even track the flu anymore. That doesn't even exist right now. Everything is COVID. Everything is COVID. They literally did that. We tracked all of it, y'all. We talked all the way through, even at the point where YouTube was snatching our videos off. We said, okay, we're going to go on Odyssey. We're going to create our own video platform, BondTube. Remember that? Where we said we can talk openly and freely about these things and what's really going on. And not just us making things up and ghost stories. We, like we always do, we went to the source. We went to medical professionals who've been in the industry for years and are looking at this thing. And a lot of them, even at the risk of them losing license and losing their practices and all that, but they were so motivated to tell the truth about what was going on. And we wanted to make sure that we were relaying that information to you as quickly as we were getting it and saying, hey, listen, go check these people out, go check that out, go check that out, go check that out, right? And so now, you know, we still are living in the fallout of that. And one of the things that really angered me is, and it still does, is that, you know, you had this whole consortium of black doctors that said, hey, we're going to, you know, look at this thing and we're going to make sure that they're not pulling the wool over our eyes, you know, over this stuff. Right. And but I already knew they weren't going to stand up and say, no, we got some questions and all that. And they didn't really do it. They didn't do anything. They just simply co-signed on it. And that was it. Nothing happened. Meanwhile, they were out here encouraging people and telling people, I mean, and then they worked with the preachers, telling them, and the preachers were customizing their sermons, basically telling people that if Jesus was here today, he would take the vaccine too. Those kind of sermons. And I'm like, wait a minute. Didn't he raise people from the dead and say, greater works than these shall you do? Didn't he? I don't know. But yet he's going to, if he was here today, he would tell you to take a vaccine. You know, that kind of stuff. But people were so in fear, they just went with it. You know what I'm saying? And so I followed up and I kept on some of these. There were, even though you did have black folks who are in the medical profession who did also come out. Some of them were coming out and saying, hey, listen, this is the deal. The overwhelming majority of them did not. And we found out that for many of these doctors, you know, there were financial incentives for every person that they brought into the office to get the, you know what, they were getting a lot of money off of that. And they were also getting there was a lot of financial incentives for the ventilators, getting people on these vent machines. I would like to get more into that, but that would take this video into a whole different direction. But there was a lot of financial incentive to get people to do this thing, to follow through on what was being told to us. And so me just saying, okay, it's been a little bit of time. Has there been any follow-up by this black consortium of doctors on what has been the impact on black bodies as a result of this? Has there been any study on it? Because he was very aggressive in telling us we had to take it. But was there any kind of follow-up study that you guys got together to do? And I've asked several doctors that, and the answer is pretty much no. Nothing has happened. So wait a minute now. You rushed us into taking something, and said that this is very important, but yet it's not important enough for you to do a follow-up study. That's kind of standard practice in the medical field, that you usually do like a follow-up thing. But you telling me this black consortium of medical professionals, they didn't do that? Well, those are the kind of questions we've been asking and still not getting any answers to that. Well, anyway, so I told you, so people were getting much money off of this thing. And I also told you too, it's not just in the medical field, but it's also in the financial space as well. People all over, regardless if they're black, white, whatever, it doesn't matter. As you know, the government was handing out loans, emergency funding for people who were impacted by this whole COVID thing, right? And I told you, that, churches, everybody had their hand out. They were handing these different PPP loans, about that, right? And I also told you recently, if you've been listening, I said, I just found out, and I was reading something, and they said that they already, if you thought the first wave of the government coming in and snatching people up who took those PPP loans illegally, if you thought that was bad, they are already launching phase 2, and you're going to start hearing a lot more. And I remember when I said this, I said, y'all, you get ready, because you're going to start seeing a whole lot of black faces showing up on this thing. So you had black folks who were financially benefiting from your fear. See, we always think, for people who always stay in the color lane, let me help you out. And during that time, you had many black folks, people who look like you, who were benefiting from telling you, yeah, you need to do this. Yeah, you need to take that. Yeah, you need to do that. People were making all kinds of money. And again, let me say, it wasn't just black folks. It was definitely white folks. It was all kind of people. But the very people, I'm addressing those who always say that I'm always going to bet on black no matter what. I'm trying to wake you up to see that, no, that's a dumb policy to have, because I'm telling you that, no, you had people who look like you who were benefiting off of your fear. Okay. And so there is an article that just dropped. This happened in North Carolina. Let me pull this up here on the screen. North Carolina. 8 Robeson County women pled guilty to tax fraud scheme based on COVID tax credits, feds say. Bruh, I'm some of these images, bruh, wow. These are their shots. I'm like, bruh, I'm gonna be nice here. Anyway, a Robeson County woman who owned a tax return preparation business has pled guilty to conspiring to prepare false returns, claiming fraudulent refunds based on COVID-19 tax credits, and assisting in the preparation of false tax returns, according to a news release from the U.S. Department of Justice. The release said that Mitchell, 48, faces a maximum term of 8 years in prison and $500,000 fine when sentenced later this year. Mitchell will also be ordered to pay a forfeiture money judgment of nearly $14 million. 7 other tax return preparers have already pleaded guilty to their roles in the same fraud scheme. According to court documents and statements made in court, Mitchell owned and operated a tax return preparation business out of Lumberton and Hope Mill. The release from approximately April 2022 through May 2023, Mitchell and 7 employees filed false tax returns seeking fraudulent refunds based on, okay, it's repeating itself. But like I told you, you're going to see a lot. And this ain't even it, y'all. If you think I'm just saying that just based off of this article, oh, honey, baby, child. There are people in government. I got black folks that are in government in all forms, in churches, all kinds of stuff. That reminds me of a story. If I remember it later, I will, after we do our segment on Fawn Weaver, hopefully I'll remember this. I have another channel. I haven't been as active on it, but that channel is called Long Form History. And I did a series called The Black Church is a factory of broken children. This one, I have to really take I'm not going to talk about it right this second. When we're finished this segment here, our main segment, I will get to it. But this right here, when I tell you, I'm showing y'all this stuff has been happening. I just gave you the history behind it, but it's still happening today. But we'll get into that. But right now, let's get into our main segment. As always, I want to give a big shout out, of course, to everybody in the chat. So glad to have you guys here. It's a beautiful Friday here in Arizona. Like I said, we hit 110 degrees. I hope you guys are doing well and appreciate each and every one of you, especially our regular folks. Really appreciate you and the first timers. So glad that you're here. Anyway, let's get into it. My goodness. So we did a video a while back talking about this whole thing about Uncle Nearest. Uncle Nearest, as you know, is a line of whiskey that was relaunched, if you will, by a woman by the name of Fawn Weaver. I'm trying to get her image up here. And she basically went to the family of Uncle Nearest Green. Oh, there it is. I'm trying to get rid of this stuff on my screen. Okay. She went to the family and she didn't really have a background on, managing any kind of like liquor or anything like that. She had some background in some things, but she was able to talk them into basically, hey, listen, I want you to, I would like to take the name, the legacy of Nathan Green, and I would like to, build a company off of his name. Here it is right here. This is Fawn Weaver here. And so she said she approached the family and all of that. I covered all of that in our video that we did on this a while back. And so she went there and the family agreed or whatever. I'm sure there was a lot of paperwork that was passed and all of that kind of stuff. And so, so she launched it. And initially she was doing quite well. I mean, grew the business up. It grew very rapidly. It was becoming very, very popular. In fact, it almost became kind of a leading company within that industry, in that particular part of the wine and liquor industry. It really launched off big time. And to her credit, yes, it did. It was doing quite well. I think that's kind of an understatement. But then the cracks started showing. People began to see, let me get rid of this thing, because every time I keep flashing that thing up, y'all, and that's not my fault here. Hold on. Never mind. I'll do it later. There we go. All right. So anyway, the cracks started showing. And what ended up happening is people were not getting paid. There was a serious accounting issues that kept coming up. People weren't getting paid. Things were just happening. It was just kind of weird. And then finally, one of the lenders had enough and said, you know what, we're not getting our money. We're going to take you to court. And that's what they did. And so they was able to convince a judge to put this company, Uncle Nearest Company, under a receivership, where it's under the authority of the court now. And now, you know, it's just, they're finding out money was all over the place. Stuff was hidden. She was not telling the truth about a lot of stuff. And I'm going to play a video, someone who's actually was following it a lot closer than I was. But I do want to play this video so you can get caught up on what's going on. And yeah, I got some thoughts, of course, as always on this stuff here. So let me pull this video up for you. And then we're going to catch up on what she's doing now. Quite interesting. Anyway, let me go ahead and get this video up here for you. And let's go ahead and play it. And let's take a listen.
The judge overseeing the Uncle Nearest receivership recently issued a 62-page order where at one point he says, quote, "The court observed Fawn Weaver's demeanor during the February 9th hearing. It has noted where her testimony has changed during the course of these proceedings and where it has been in tension with the truth." And I'm not a lawyer, but I read through all 62 pages, so let me give you the latest on how it's looking for the Uncle Nearest team. And the answer is not good. So for context, this order is actually the judge responding to two separate requests. The first request was from the Uncle Nearest team when they asked for the receivership to end, and then the second request was from the receiver asking for the receivership to be expanded. Yes, one side asked for it to end and the other side asked for it to get bigger. And if you're confused, both of these motions were actually requested a long time ago, but the judge never made a ruling on them. He allowed both sides to submit written arguments, and then he had a hearing on these two issues back in February, and then he let them submit more written arguments, and now finally, the judge says that both of these issues are, quote, ripe for review. So that gets us to this order. And because it's 62 pages, I'm not gonna go through everything, but here are some of the highlights. The first one being that according to the judge, Fawn Weaver is not credible. And he says that because according to him, Fawn's testimony in court does not match up to the declaration she submitted in writing, and that doesn't match up to some of the evidence he's reviewed himself. At one point in the order, the judge says, quote, "The court has the firm conviction that Fawn Weaver's testimony thus far has been guided by the story she believes best serves her personal interests, irrespective of its relation to the truth." That's a crazy way to say somebody lied, ain't it? And then at other points, he just flat out says Fawn Weaver lacks credibility. That matters because if a lot of Uncle Nearest arguments for the receivership to end is based on what Fawn Weaver is claiming, the judge is basically saying, you gonna need more than that. And in addition to the issues with credibility, the judge also repeatedly says that Uncle Nearest is insolvent, which again, either means the company cannot pay their bills as they're due, or they have more debt than they do assets. And in this case, the judge says both of these things are true. Okay, so the next highlight from this order is what the judge describes as fraudulent conduct involving a $20 million loan tied to Jay-Z's venture capital company called
Check this out.
MP10. So quick context. Earlier this year, there were headlines running about a $20 million loan that Jay-Z's venture capitalist company loaned to Uncle Nearest. And the loan was done through what's called a convertible promissory note, which basically means Jay-Z's company, Marcy Penn, provided $20 million to Uncle Nearest right now. And instead of Uncle Nearest having to pay it back in cash later, the debt could potentially be converted into ownership shares in the future. But the alleged fraudulent activity comes in because, according to the judge, once the $20 million hit the Uncle Nearest account, Fawn Weaver transferred the money into an account belonging to her separate company.
Oh, Lord, oh, Lord, oh, Lord. Did y'all are y'all hearing this? She took that money that Jay-Z gave her, and then she quickly put it into her own another account that she had.
Once the $20 million hit the Uncle Nearest account, Fawn Weaver transferred the money into an account belonging to her separate company called Grant Sidney. Now, Grant Sidney is her own separate, isolated company where she is the sole shareholder and has the largest amount of Uncle Nearest shares. So, Fawn Weaver transfers the money from Uncle Nearest to her Grant Sidney account, and then she disperses it back in different payments to Uncle Nearest, making it look like Grant Sidney was the source of the money. The fact that the money actually came from Marcy Penn was never disclosed. Even in company documents, the disbursements were listed as money owed back to Grant Sidney. So this whole Marcy Penn, Grant Sidney, Uncle Nearest situation gets discovered. So during the hearing that was held back in February, Fawn Weaver is asked about this whole switcheroo, and she testifies that she moved the money because she did not want the funds to be, quote, snatched by Farm Credit. I don't... And the Uncle Nearest team says Farm Credit, the lending company who brought about this whole receivership, knew and approved this whole situation. And so in this order, the judge basically says that doesn't make sense, because why would Farm Credit knowingly approve Uncle Nearest take on another $20 million in debt when Uncle Nearest already owes Farm Credit over $120 million? And if Uncle Nearest was getting a random $20 million, why would Farm Credit not immediately say that that money belongs to us, either in repayments, or we should at the very least have a say as to where the money goes? And lastly, the judge questions, why would Farm Credit be okay with Grant Sidney appearing to be the source of the money if everyone supposedly knew that the money actually came from Marcy Penn? Why wouldn't they just want it documented that it came from Marcy Penn? So the judge says, this doesn't make sense, and it seems like you actually concealed where this money came from. Now, the judge does acknowledge that all of the money did go back to Uncle Nearest, but the concealment itself is what the judge has an issue with, and what the judge says establishes fraudulent conduct. And since it happened under Fawn Weaver's watch, the judge says this is another reason for this receivership to continue. And that leads to the final highlight from this 62-page document, which is that the judge is now ordering Grant Sidney to also be under this receivership. Basically, the judge rules that since you used your separate company to hide this money, that gives me reason to have the receiver look at Grant Sidney's records. And in addition to Grant Sidney being used to conceal the $20 million, the judge also notes in this order that when he first ordered Grant Sidney to turn over all of its bank accounts for the last 5 years, the team only turned over statements for one of their bank accounts. They never mentioned the company had 2 additional accounts, and it's not until the receiver discovers those additional accounts that Fawn Weaver says she, quote, forgot about those accounts. And so because of that, the judge says he has, quote, trouble taking Fawn Weaver at her word. The judge is concerned there may be other, quote, forgotten accounts lurking in the shadows. And so the ruling is that Grant Sidney is now also a part of the receivership. Ciao. I don't even know what to say. That's the
And I think there's something weird about this lender too, because I remember when we talked about this before, the lender actually knew that some of this stuff was going on, but they were kind of green lighting it. But it's a lot going on there. But here's the thing. Uncle Nearest, the gentleman who, if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be any of this stuff. Let me just read to you his bio. This is by Wikipedia. Sometime in the 1850s, when Jack Daniels was a child, he went to work for Dan Call, a preacher, grocer, and distiller. The New York Times reported that according to company lore, the preacher was a busy man, and when he saw promise in young Jack, he taught him how to run his whiskey still. However, in June of 2016, the New York Times published a story suggesting Daniel's true teacher may have been Green, one of the enslaved people called owned. The newspaper reported that historians and locals have known the Green story for decades. Green's story, according to the article, built on oral history and the thinnest of archival trails, may never be definitively proved. A USA Today article published in July 2017 corrected the nearest spelling of his name and confirmed that Jack Daniel said his correct name was Nathan Nearest Green. Another article published by the Tennessee Tribune in March of 2019 confirmed though the story of Fawn Weaver, through the through the story of Fawn Weaver, an African-American real estate investor and author, that Green's story continues to be passed down orally through generations. And let's see. Documentation shows that Green was owned by a firm known as Landis and Green. He was owned, he was a slave, right? Who likely hired him out to Call for a fee. Green was one of the few enslaved people who stayed on to work with Call after the Emancipation Proclamation. When introducing Green to an 8-year-old Jack Daniel, Call is quoted as saying, "Uncle Nearest is the best whiskey maker that I know of." Call reportedly said to Green, "I want Jack to become the world's best whiskey distiller. If he wants to be, you help me teach him." Green served as master distiller, according to one biographer. Only a few years older than Jack, Green taught him all about the still. And then it goes on. Okay. So there's your history when it comes to this thing. And Mr. Green, of course, everybody knows Jack Daniels, but when it comes to, Nathan Green, people are now just learning about him because why? The system does what it does. It's going to make sure that people don't really get the full history of, what we contributed to, the things that we contributed to in this country. It's just what it is, right? But fortunately, truth always will find a way to come out. But unfortunately, even with that, here comes Fawn Weaver, who basically went to the family and said, "Hey, listen, I want to take this legacy and I want to take it up levels," right? And did just that. But unfortunately, she screwed it up royally. Took the money and just it's all over the place. It's a hot stinking mess. And now the company is insolvent. So this man, basically, his legacy that was finally starting to peek out there. Here comes somebody to destroy it. And this man was already resting in his grave and all that. She literally just basically dug him up, used him up for whatever money she can get out of him. And then pretty much now it's just in shambles. That is something that should be noted in when we recall history. And so I actually found, I was snooping around, and she is moving on. Now, mind you, this stuff is still going on, you guys. It's still going on. I mean, you just heard, that was as of May, by the way, what you just heard from that young lady. That was as of May. We're in end of June now. So it's a process that's still in process right now. But Miss Weaver, she's moved on. And this is her from her Instagram page. Let me see if I can refresh this for you and get this up here on the screen so you can see what she's up to now. Hold on for a second. This is her here, and let me refresh this so we can get it from the beginning.
Posting this from France in the hills near Cognac, and I promised you yesterday on Sunday with the Weavers I'd have a big announcement today, and you all were all guessing based on where I was located, but that is not the announcement yet. What the announcement is I am coming off of social media, and it is a part of the announcement, not the whole announcement. I'm coming off, and usually when people come off of social media, it's because something is wrong or they've been overwhelmed. And in this case, I'm coming off for a very, very good reason. About a week ago, one of Nearest Green's eldest descendants reached into me to do what they always do. The elders always like, "Fawn, we love you, we support you, we got you, what do you need?" And as I was talking to her, and she's teasing me about the Spurs blowing a 29-point lead, as we're talking, we get off the phone, and she sends me a text message, and she says, "Hey, I forgot to ask you, have you finished writing Love and Whiskey Part 2? And I thought about it and thought, how did I let so much get me off track? Y'all, I'm coming off of social to finish it. First 17 chapters are done. And you thought Love and Whiskey Part 1 was right? And don't get me wrong, that is not the title of this book. But because she called it Love and Whiskey Part 2, that's what we're going to stick to at the current moment. But I'm coming off of social media. When you see me next, the book will be done. So either you'll see me for my 50th birthday on September 5th and I'll pop in and say, hey, or you will see me as soon as the book is finished and I have it off to the editors. So you won't see me on social and you won't see Sunday with the Weavers because my full focus is going to be on making sure y'all know the full story. The truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. Love y'all. I will see you soon. Until then, I'm going out that way.
So we just move right on. Just destroy this man's legacy, and we just moving right on. Just moving right on. I'm just gonna go do a book now. Meanwhile, you're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars that are just, people don't even know where it is now. She don't even know. You just heard the other person say, talking about the judge and saying that she cannot be trusted. The judge is saying this. The judge is saying that. I mean, I know we got folks out here that, you know, when it comes to the law and courts and all of that, you know, double-minded. You got people's court and then you got real court. And the judge saying that is pretty heavy. That's pretty heavy. And so she is diverting now her attention. I'm going to be off social media a little bit. And if you are on Instagram, check out the comments. I mean, people are like, yeah, that sounds like you are pretty much, someone's advising you need to shut the hell up right now because you need to be focused on this whole situation. And that's where it is. And so this is quite unfortunate. And I'm not going to, like some people will talk about this and say, see, this is what black women do and all. I'm not going there. That's just, we're talking one particular case here. That's what we're talking about. Okay. We ain't talking about all black women. We're not saying that. It's just this particular case right here, and we're just saying that this is very unfortunate and it is something that should be noted. Period. This can't be a story that just like, oh, well, things happen. No, this is very wrong. What happened to the legacy of this man, and the fact that you can just literally just switch and go to something else like that. I mean, that's really bad. That's really, really bad. I mean, you probably shouldn't have did that video. I mean, there's quite a few videos she's uploaded and it's like, yeah, you probably need to be quiet for now. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. I wanted to give you an update on that story. I do remember now the other story that I want to cover for you here. It is, said it should be called Lies and Whiskey. Yeah, exactly. Now I do want to bring up this other story to you. All right, unrelated to this story that we just talked about, but again, I told you on our channel. Do a search, not this channel, but we have a channel called Long Form History. And I did a series. It's basically, let me see if I can pull it up for you. Let's see if I can pull it up for you right quick here, you guys. Long Form History. I'll see if I can find that Long Form History channel. Here it is. Okay, here it is right here. Let me bring it up on the screen so you know what it looks like. And if you do have the opportunity to watch it, I would highly, highly recommend for you to check it out here. It's called The Black Church, A Factory of Broken Children. The Black Church, A Factory of Broken Children. And what we do in that series, again, we go all the way back into the history and we talk about how, this topic of child abuse that is taking place within the walls of the black church. This is people don't want to talk about this kind of stuff, and the sexual perversion that has taken place. We talk about different famous gospel singers. A lot of people talk about James Cleveland. We talk about some other gospel singers out there, artists out there who were very open about their sexual activities that was going on while they were singing, penning some of the most quote unquote anointed songs out there. And we talked about that in great detail. And then we tie it back into the impact it had on children. And so, yeah, and we talked about even to this very day, there are many children that are unfortunately impacted by this. And this is why today in the black church, you have the order is basically the feminist black woman followed by the gay black man. And if you want to know why there's so many gay black men in the church, you'll quickly discover that a lot of them were abused by people in the church. And it wasn't just men, it was also the women too. And we're focused on the men, but there's also many young women who were abused in the church as well. So we talk about that as well. So if you haven't seen that series, make sure you check that out. But I do want to bring your attention to something that just happened that kind of ties into that. This was a story that I just came across here. This happened in Philadelphia, and let me pull this up here on the screen and let me play this story for you. Take a look at this.
A poster hangs outside Garden of Prayer World Prayer Center with an image of Senior Pastor Brian Jackson. The North Philadelphia church's leader has since been charged with sexual exploitation and abuse of children, conspiracy, and corruption of minors. Jackson and a second pastor, Isaiah Banks of Second Pilgrim Baptist Church, who's facing similar child sex abuse charges, are both accused of soliciting sexually explicit videos of minors in exchange for money or food.
Mr. Banks groomed more than one minor in the community to produce child pornography and then provided that pornography to Mr. Jackson, who also directly communicated with these children for the purpose of getting more videos and photos.
Prosecutors say Banks recently resigned from his role at the church in a hurry. A woman who answered the church phone had no comment. No one answered at Jackson's house of worship. Arrest papers allege the two pastors texted and messaged back and forth about soliciting images of child pornography as far back as 2024. Jackson is accused of posing as a female in text messages to obtain photos and videos from his accuser. Prosecutors said about there being possibly more victims.
There is more than one, but this is a very active investigation, and it will become clear, I would say, in the next couple of months, how many more than one.
A poster hangs out.
Yeah, so that just happened in Philadelphia there. Folks, let me tell you something. Earlier I talked about the whole lynching situation, or lynching, or they found this young black woman who was hanging in a park, and people, automatically assume, come to the conclusion that it had to be a white person that did it or whatever. And this is why I want to have this conversation, because, and we, with our dear sister here, because a lot of people just aren't ready to have that kind of conversation on, for example, in that case, we're talking about depression, but the same thing goes for child abuse and even the care of black children. A lot of people really don't want to have that conversation. I'm remembering, and I keep bringing this story up over and over again, but I'll continue to bring it up. The whole situation, the missing girls in D.C. Oh my God, they're snatching up black girls all throughout Washington, D.C. area. And the mainstream media isn't talking about it. They're not talking about it. They're not talking about it. Well, the result was the chief of police, who was a black woman herself. She basically said that, in her press conference about this whole situation, she said that many of these children, these young ladies that were missing, they were missing because they ran away from home. not because people were snatching them out of their homes or anything like that, but they literally were running. They were runaways. And some people, even with that, when she said that, you still had people saying, yeah, but see, they say it's runaway, but it's always a conspiracy. It's like you can't deal with the facts. Because if you deal with the facts, it's going to force you to start asking, why are these young ladies running away from what should be considered the safest place on the earth for them? And that is their home. Why is there so many runaways? And so, but people don't want to have that conversation because it's too uncomfortable. Well, it's the same thing when we talk about in the black church. And when I say the black church, please understand, I stress that in the series. I said, listen, it happens in the white church too, y'all. Okay? It happens in the white church. I know, trust me, I do know about that. I know about it very close. Nothing happened to me, but someone I knew very close, it happened to them. And it was several people, matter of fact. And I saw how in the white church, as soon as it got out that the leadership, someone in leadership was messing around with that, then they do the whole switcheroo. Next thing you know, you don't see him. Well, he's on vacation. They move him away somewhere. I know about the white church. Okay, so we can shelve that. We know they do it. But again, the black church, it happens there too. And it's something that many black folks do not want to talk about. We talked about Kirk Franklin and all them, all of these individuals there that, punching out all of this so-called anointed music. But behind the scenes, they were doing all kinds of stuff. People, members of the choir, they were doing all kinds of stuff. I played you the clips. I showed you all of this stuff. But this is the real world. And when you look at the real, a lot of people aren't ready to look at the real world. They're just not. We want this fantasy. We want this imaginative space where we just, that's not me. That's them over there. No, it's happening and it's real. You understand what I'm saying? And you got to be honest about it, about what you're seeing, because this stuff is happening and it is impacting our children now. And that's a whole nother thing. I have stuff I want to show on that, but I said, I'll wait. We'll do that in another video, but there's even more stuff coming out now. But anyway, that's it. I wanted to just do a follow-up on that Uncle Nearest story. I thought that was quite interesting. And so, we'll see what happens with her book, Lies and Liquor. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. And I guess we'll close out with more of our AI song called Why, Fawn, Why?
Now you packing up your little suitcase.
All right, sis, make sure you reach out to me, okay?
Look at you now.
You guys take care, and thank you so much as always for tuning in.
Grasshopper and Sunday shoes, jumping from story to story, but you done hopped across the wrong graveyard this time. It was bad enough them folks tried to keep my magic a secret, but you came along and dug me up just to sell tickets to see. Made money off my dead body, put a ribbon on my pain. Call it honor, call it justice, but it sure smelled like a game. Down dirty, you smiled while you swung that spade. You didn't wake me for remembrance, you woke me up to get paid. Why, Fawn, why you had to do me so low? Why, Fawn, I wouldn't let my old bones go. the sky. Then you came along with a shovel and a smile.